vehicle access on the southern portion of the site to West Side Boulevard. And that's only an emergency vehicle access because it's due to its close proximity to Steinbach Drive. I'm not sure if I put there's an aerial right here. So the emergency vehicle access would be more towards the southern portion of the site, and it's in close proximity to Steinbach. So for emergency purposes, it's not a full-blown out second access to the site due to its proximity to the intersections, but it is an EVA. The approval for the extension can be as was approved 2 years ago. It can be modified to add conditions, or it can be denied. It's up to the commission. Staff is taking this opportunity if the applicant didn't want to go for this request to add additional conditions to the project, essentially indicating that first, when we analyze this at our development review committee meeting, we don't have on our resolution a specific site width of the emergency vehicle access, and that would be reviewed with the fire department and with engineering. However, the fire department did indicate that it should be at minimum 26 feet. The plan does actually show a 20-foot wide, so they had a concern, so they just said the resolution should indicate 26 feet. Another condition indicates that the applicant should pay all of their impact fees as currently, as opposed to from 2 years ago. There's also another condition that is not on your resolution, but is added today. We put it as within our PowerPoint presentation. It was just prepared by our engineering department, and if it addresses development that occurs, such as grading or early start development prior to the actual final map approval. And so, as it states on the slide, after approval of the tentative map, the developer applicant may choose to start grading and infrastructure improvements prior to the final map being recorded and a subdivision improvement agreement being approved by the council. These shall not be unreasonably denied. Once the developer submits and gains approval by the city engineer of the grading plans and or improvement plans, applicant shall provide approved surety in the amount of 100% of the engineer's estimate for faithful performance and 100% of the engineer's estimate for labor and material. Pay all applicable fees and provide insurance certificates. So essentially, it's a condition that we want to add. Now it's going to be a standard condition, essentially making sure that if developers start to do any grading work, any work on site, that they have everything bonded for, that they have all their requirements by the city that normally take place at final map. So that condition would be added as well. With that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission review the applicant's request, receive all written and oral testimony regarding the proposal, and consider approving a 1-year extension of tentative map 2015-9 and conditional use permit 2016-3 for a plan unit development with the attached draft resolution with the conditions as stated. Are there any questions for staff?
Any questions?
Just a comment on one of the additional conditions that you've added.
Yeah.
The slurry seal.
Yes.
It's just a little bit cryptic here, reading through here, that it says prior to the city's acceptance of the roads on the project site, subdivision roads and vicinity roads, including but not limited to Street, West Side Boulevard, and Steinbeck Drive. It's not clear where the boundary is for what the applicant is required to do. So, I mean,
good comment, Commissioner Hivoy.
I think you may get questions about that down the line.
The reason why this came about, and this is a newer condition as well. One of our inspectors out there all the time, working hard with all these developers, all these contractors from the engineering department. Jeff Hall, before the city accepts a development, he wants to make sure he goes out and tells them, we're not accepting it until you slurry seal and you make these roads new. And so he's coming to us saying, you know what, they're not. Sometimes I get. He says sometimes they get angry at me. He's like, I just want to make sure the project is good. He indicated if there's something in writing, then I can just say, I can tell them, and if they start, contradicting or telling me why not, then I can just point out the condition. So normally he indicates that we try to keep things at the project site, but if he feels that some of the work or some of the repayment or slurry seals should be a little bit beyond the project site for consistency, then he has the authority to do so. So that's why, even though like Steinbach Drive and Westside Boulevard, it's already a little bit to the south of the project site, he wants to make sure that it's indicated, and and if it has to go a little bit further, then he can just say, look, just do it.
Jeff Hall is experienced in that.
Oh yeah, he's very experienced when it comes to that. And we want to make sure.
Any problems in the past, then, right?
Yeah, and we want to make sure that if part of that slurry seal means taking out stop sign or crosswalks, that they are taken out, markings on the road, but they are replaced with the proper.
Well, I'm all in favor of it. I just think that maybe in the future we kind of get some kind of an idea on behalf of the applicant, what his responsibilities are.
Sure.
A little bit more clear on that.
Sure. Very well.
That's it.
Okay. Any additional comments?
Just again, I'll note again that the minimum site, was the original approval of the 4-foot setback on the side yard? That's not changed, right? Just the eve discussion have been added.
Correct.
It was already approved with the 4-foot.
It was already approved with the 4-foot, but that eve, and that was that condition, the minimum side yard setbacks. That was a condition that was done because in response to your concerns, Commissioner Lenore, about the 4-foot, the homes being too close. So
I understand the condition.
Yes.
Regarding the eve overhang.
Yes, that's exactly why.
But we did approve the 4-foot side yards, 4-foot side yard.
That's correct.
The original tentative map.
That's correct. Okay. Yes.
Okay. We'll go ahead and open this item for public comment. It's 6:48. Do you have any speaker cards on this item?
We do not have any speaker cards, Chairman Torres.
All right. So we'll bring it back at 6:48 to the commission for continued discussion, comments, motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Let's see. Resolution number? I wasn't listening.
It's okay. 31.
This one's 31. So I move that we adopt Planning Commission Resolution 2017-31 extending for the extension of conditional use permit 2016-3 for our plan unit development and tentative map.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right,
With the findings and conditions as stated.
Very well. And the one that's added on there.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 3, McCrae Street vacation. City of Hollister. The City of Hollister is seeking to vacate a 10-foot tree planting and maintenance easement and a 10-foot public utility easement along the public right-of-way of McCrae Street and East Park Street for future development by a private developer. CEQA is categorical exemption. Haber.
Thank you, Chairman Torres. Yes, the request tonight is for a vacation of McCrae Street's public utilities easement along McCrae Street and Park Street, and also tree planting and maintenance easement vacation. If you recall, the actual McCrae Street was vacated by the Planning Commission, I believe it was November of 2016. Last year. However, and essentially it's going to be vacated and it's going to be sold to a applicant that's doing a commercial development in that area. And we approved the tentative map back in June for the Hawkins companies. However, the vacation of the road back in November did not indicate the public utility and tree planting and maintenance easement, and for formalities, that also has to be part of the record, and so therefore staff recommends that the Planning Commission review the request and approve the resolution, formally making that recommendation of vacating not only the street but the public utility easement and the tree planting and maintenance easement, and recommending that to the City Council for formal vacation. Any questions for staff?
Questions, comments? Okay, with none, we'll go ahead and open up public comment period at 6:50. Do we have any speaker cards on this item, Abraham?
There are no speaker cards for this item, Chairman Torres.
All right, we will close it at 6:50 and bring it back to the commission. And what is the pleasure of the commission on this item?
I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution PC 2017-32, approving the determination that summary vacation of tree planting and maintenance easement and public utility easement conforms to the City of Hollister general plan.
Okay, and I'll second that. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right. Item 4 is the Title 17 zoning amendments. An ordinance to amend miscellaneous sections of the Title 17 zoning to assure internal consistency and minor clarifications in the Hollister Municipal Code for clarifications and corrections pertaining to on-site notification of proposed projects in the City of Hollister, and allowing the minor vehicle repair land use, downtown commercial and mixed use, DMU zoning districts, except in the historical district. CEQA is categorical exemption. Abraham.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Torres. As you mentioned, the City of Hollister is recommending some zoning amendments to our Hollister Municipal Code. One of them being, currently the City of Hollister has various ways of notifying the public of a project. One is there is a newspaper public notice that's sent out, and it must be published at least 10 days before a public hearing. Two, the letters go out to all property owners within 300 feet of a project, and basically advertising the public hearing and inviting them to, if they have any questions, they can contact us. There's a contact information for information of the project, and also inviting them to the public hearing as well. The City Council, well, not the City Council, but staff, in working with members of the public who are concerned about projects that are going on in the city, and wanting to see or wanting to know more information of projects, and also in talking with different people. One of the advocates is Councilmember Clower as well. Asked if we can start looking into the possibility of including on-site notification on site, and not necessarily just when the project is going into a public hearing stage, but more towards the beginning of the stage. So we did a little bit of research on providing on-site notification signage, and we actually crafted a draft ordinance. And essentially what we have before you is a draft ordinance indicating that when an applicant submits an application to the City of Hollister, pursuant to the Permit Streamlining Act, staff must respond with the letter of completeness or incompleteness within 30 days. And basically the letter indicates that the application is complete. You have responded to all the requirements that we have requested. And so now that it's complete, these are the next steps that we have to take. Or thank you for submitting your application. Your application is incomplete. We need you to revise your tentative map or revise your site and architectural plan to indicate X, Y, and Z. So even though the state zoning law allows us 30 days, our standard practice in the city is that we respond when we get an application in our deadline. We take the first week to write staff reports for all the applications. Then we, at the end of that week, we send all the staff reports with the plans to all the Development Review Committee members, police, fire, engineering, building, so they can review and provide comments, and we give them 1 week to review. And at the end of that second week, we get together and at that point we know if the application is complete or if it's incomplete. So normally at the second week, third week at the latest, we send that letter to the applicant. So this zoning amendment would require that no later than 7 days of the applicant receiving the letter of complete or incomplete, that they post a sign on their site, minimum dimensions of 2 feet by 3, which would be 6 square feet, and have proper notice. For example, the minimum dimensions is 2 feet by 3 feet, and the maximum is 4 feet by 4 feet. We just want to regulate the size of the signage. It's common, not to have them too big. We looked at different cities, Gilroy, Santa Cruz, cities in the area. And so, very importantly, have the content at the very top, have a notice of proposed project, have the project number, and have the address and the assessor parcel number, just regular general information. Then have a brief description of the project, what it's going to entail, what the project going to be about. Descriptive words like luxurious or fancy should not be a part of that project description. It should just say the facts, pretty much. And that information is going to be reviewed by city staff before it's actually constructed or erected on the site. And then I'll have an area where I'll say for further information, I'll have the applicant's information, and then it'll have the city's information right next to it, in case anybody has any questions. And at the very bottom, there'll be 2 8.5 by 11 sleeves, plastic sleeves. So when it gets closer to the public hearing day, we just go and we'll insert the sleeves there, basically indicating when the public notice is going to be. And last but not least, at the very bottom, there will be an area in Spanish directing Spanish speakers for information essentially regarding the project to contact. There will be a name and a telephone number for Spanish-speaking people who are interested in finding out more information. So that's part of the requirement that's going to be mainly for tentative maps, conditional use permits, for plan unit developments, site and architectural reviews, variances, general plan amendments, pre-zoning for annexations. For smaller projects like administrative permit reviews, we're not going to require that. So essentially, we're amending the application submittal process section of the zoning code. We're amending the public hearing section of the zoning code because there is going to be a new public notice requirement now with this. And we're also amending the signs section of the zoning code to exempt these types of signage from any type of building permits. And we discussed the size and material with Greg, our building official, and he was okay with that. Location of these signs are going to be in an area that are going to avoid any type of obstruction, site obstruction for motorists. They cannot be illuminated. They have to be at least 10 feet in, 10-foot setback from property line, no less than 6 feet in, no further than 10 feet, no less than 6 feet, and on corner or areas that are like our corner lots, there has to be a radius of certain radius for it to be set back appropriately to avoid any type of line of sight obstructions as well. So that is part of the zoning, and that's one aspect of the zoning amendments that are being requested today. The other part is the City of Hollister received a inquiry regarding a potential oil can Henry's on the corner of First Street and San Benito Street. The corner of First Street and San Benito Street towards the west, as you know, many years back, at least the official records, I think the finance department says that it closed down in 2003. I think it was a service station. I think it was a 76. I was small back then, but there was a service station right at the corner, and then just to the south there was a KFC. Unfortunately, both of those sites are not there. They have been vacant for many years. And so we did get an inquiry from the property owner and a potential client, along with their real estate agent, and their engineer about putting an oil can Henry's either right at the corner or more in towards where the KFC used to be. Both lots are owned by the same property owner. And as you know, right now, the downtown commercial mixed-use zoning district does not permit minor vehicle repair or major vehicle repair. The big difference there is that minor vehicle repair are typically your 1 day. You come in, you do an oil change, replacement of liquids, smog checks, things of that nature, tire changes, pretty much everything associated to a 1 day service for a vehicle. And major is more of a tranny work or body work of a vehicle. The amendment would keep major vehicle repair not permitted in the downtown. However, the amendment is asking for minor vehicle repair to be permitted in the downtown zoning use. However, we do realize that the downtown does have a historic district that basically encompasses South Street just a little bit slightly on to the north of South Street and 4th Street, and it goes all the way south, just a little bit south of South Street, and it traverses the roads in between, the streets in between. And so part of the amendment would be that minor vehicle repair would be still not permitted within the historic district, but it would be allowed outside of the area of the historic district within the downtown commercial mixed use, which would make it allowable for the property on 1st Street to have the oil can Henry's. We met with the applicant. The applicant, as you know, we live in a seismic city. The area there is in the special study seismic zone along 1st Street. There's a special study seismic zone. And so one of the requirements that the city has is that prior to entitlements of a project, like in this case, site and architectural review, that the applicant will conform to the Alquiz-Priolo Act, essentially requiring a geologic trench of the site because it's within the special study seismic zone to try and determine to see if there's any presence of active faulting on the area. And the reason why we require that, as you know, prior to site and architectural review or prior to entitlement is because if there is active faulting found in the area, then the geologist would make proper recommendations of proper setbacks where non-habitable or buildings where there's not going to be any occupancy or very limited occupancy have to stay away from. And those non-buildable areas can have, for example, the parking lot area. And so essentially the applicant indicated that they don't want to commit to start doing the trenching unless the city does provide for an approval of this amendment to allow minor vehicle repair uses on the site. And so the reason why staff is before you is because the proposal would allow for economic development of the site, of the city. It will bring revenue to the city. It provides a service to the public, for vehicle repair, minor vehicle repair, and also the hopes that staff will work with the applicant to provide an aesthetically pleasing building on the site, with the hopes that it will spur up not only economic development but also hopefully other property owners in the vicinity to try and want to do something to make it more aesthetically pleasing on that area of the downtown. And so that's the reason why we were providing it for you today. And so with that being said, staff recommends that the Planning Commission review the report, the draft ordinance that's provided in your report as well, and provide approval of the resolution, the draft resolution, also detailing the draft ordinance for recommendation to the City Council for adoption. Are there any questions for staff?
Abraham, I have a question real quick for the one in regards to this on-site notification. Is there a quantity of signs required based on the size of the property? So if you're doing a large 5-acre development that's fronts two different, are you going to require one on either side?
Correct. Correct.
So somewhere in there, there's that notation.
There is a
X-
notation.
X number of signs are required based on the size of the project.
The notation indicates one sign per frontage. So if it does, like your example, Chairman Torres, if there is two sides, two roads, then there would be one on each. And there's also a caveat there that if reviewed and the signs don't appear to be significant or where if for some reason they're going to be lost on the bushes that are in the area, they're not visible,
Right.
the city can make a determination to add an additional sign as well. So yes, but the requirement would be one per each frontage.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any additional questions?
Yes. Again, you're mixing two items here, and I'm for one and not the other. So this puts me in a bad situation because I got to tell you, folks, I am not for minor automobile stuff, anything in the downtown commercial mixed use. I just like retail and, of course, the mixed use part of the retail. David, you were on the steering committee when they did the general plan. Was there not a lot of discussion about the type of downtown we wanted to see? And it did not include automobile stuff. I know there was considerable discussion because we're trying to turn a page downtown. What's that do for the muffler shop? It's a legal non-conforming use right now. If you change this, then you're going to have a legal use over there. It's going to be there forever. It's right in the heart of downtown. It actually is in the historical district, that lot as well.
Oh.
But I guess it wouldn't be grandfathered then.
Correct.
Because it's in the historical district.
That's correct.
Again, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm very much in favor of public noticing. As you recall, I used to do that. Were you there?
Oh yeah.
I went out with my stake and my hammer and my
You-
staple gun and posted many sites for the county and the city. So I do believe in that. But I'm letting the rest of my co-commissioners here know that I got a big problem with the automobile. I wanted to see commercial retail on there. Even though I know this generates some sales tax, it's not like commercial retail or a restaurant. It's right on the downtown. I still believe that we should not allow automobile related in the downtown, whether it's historical or not. That's my comments. But now I don't know how we'll see
Thank
what
you.
these folks say.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, any additional comments?
Well, I was on the general plan steering committee, and we did talk about ideas to expand uses and revitalize the downtown. And in this particular case, it's on First Street, so it's you know, I know in the North Gateway it would be, I guess we've got automobile uses up in that
correct.
area. Here's like a transition zone. It's not really right in the middle of the historic district, but it's bordering it, and you know, I do have a concern on that.
It's the zoning.
Okay.
Gabriel, what do you think?
I agree. I think I like the transition. I think that's for me, I'm comfortable with it. We're on that First Street because everything from your Rossi Tire, the fueling stations. I mean, it leads right into. If it were put there, I think it would transition well then into the commercial district. So I'm okay.
So you're looking at it as a transition zone.
I do. That's my opinion.
The transition is out in the North Gateway, not in downtown. North Gateway was the transition. If you
Get
don't
the-
mind other lots maybe being eligible, you have the 4th Street lot there, the parking lot there. That means they could put an automobile, a minor thing there, right? Is that outside on the historical district?
That I believe that's in the
So it
historical
doesn't just
district.
affect this lot. You need to think about that. It's not just this lot. We're saying in anywhere down there that's not in the historical district could have minor vehicle repair.
Well, the
So
historic
is that lot
district,
in?
though, it goes from 4th to South Street, correct?
Yeah, and it does. And one thing that I do want to
That would be
add.
part of the historic district.
Correct. And one thing that I do want to add is that it's not just permitted by right. We're asking at least an administrative permit review. So staff would still take a look at the application and make sure that it meets parking requirements. For example, a minor vehicle repair would require a minimum of 5 parking spots, plus 1 for every 250 square feet of gross floor area. We would want to make sure that it has proper queuing lanes for vehicles that are waiting for their repair, not to be able to back into streets. So if it doesn't meet those requirements, it's not going to get the administrative permit review. We're also going to look at the actual building itself. We're going to require a grease separator to make sure that any type of contaminants are handled properly on the site. So those are things that are still going to go through our development review committee process, all these requirements are going to have to be met. And if they are not, for example, if there's a building that has multiple uses, we're going to make sure that parking is met for all the uses, not just the one that's being proposed, but all the existing uses as well. So the administrative permit review process would still require some type of discretion on the approval for the use that's being proposed. It's not going to be just permitted outright. It would require some review.
Well, if it was the proposed location anywhere between 4th and South Street, I'd definitely no.
You gotta quit. You need to. Downtown does not just exist from 4th to South Street. It goes from 1st Street to Hawkins Street. When you keep doing that, it doesn't help the other areas. You do have a larger downtown than just 4th to South, and it goes all the way to Monterey, and it goes all the way to East and Sally. I mean, it's a bigger area than what you realize, and what I'm saying is, do it for this lot. Maybe they'll want to put one at 4th and San Benito. That's not in the historic district. How are you going to say no? If you allow it, you allow it. You don't just allow it down there.
The 4th and San Benito is in the historic district.
No, it's not.
The 4th and San Benito lot that on the southwest corner is not. But again, it would have to go through an administrative permit review.
Well, but they would have the right to do that there, and that's something that y'all should think about. Because you're going to approve this one for that use, you're going to get more requests. And if you do, you're going to be in a rock and a hard spot. That's downtown down there. That's my opinion.
Okay.
So I have a couple of things is why are there 2 amendments on the same item instead of being separate? And then I also agree with Gabe that there's a transition. And as you come into town, you've already got dealerships that do service. There's a transition. This is an empty lot. And then the downtown is kind of protected under the historical district. So you're keeping, the downtown reserved, and this minor repair is outside of that area. So I'm okay with how this is. I'm okay with both items. I'm not sure why they're on the same.
I can respond to that, Commissioner Munzer. Normally, when the city's looking, as you know, last month, the commission also recommended the zoning amendments for the public facility zoning district. Normally, we try not to come with too many zoning amendments throughout. We should have actually waited for that one for right now too. We try to wait a little bit if they're not too pressing. We try to wait, and if there's a few things that are going on, wait 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. Maybe the whole year with that one. If they're not too pressing, and then come to the commission with the recommendations for the overall other amendments that we're requesting, and the council is who eventually would make that adoption. But it does require a recommendation. So if there's 10 amendments before you and you like 9 out of the 10, then you can make the recommendation for the 9 out of the 10. So it doesn't have to be approving one resolution. You can make the choice of modifying and not approving all the recommendations that staff is providing. So that's the reason why we have it. Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we'll go ahead and open this up for public comment if we can.
It's a public hearing, yes.
Okay, so 6:14. Do we have any speaker cards, Abraham?
We don't have a speaker card, but we have Jason Noble.
promised to fill that out. Jason Noble, I represent Oil Ken Henry, the company that's attempting to purchase the property at the corner of First and San Benito. And I can share with you that for probably no less than 7 years, I've knocked on Billy's door, making mention that when the general plan did the DC overlay of the downtown, sounded great. Mixed-use zoning was something that was a throwback to the store downstairs and people lived upstairs, and that sounded great. But then time went on, and nobody did anything downtown. One of the challenges, we had a meeting, I'm trying to remember the lady's name, that it was at Running Rooster, and the lady did a presentation on Lynn Lake's lot. And all through the meeting, she was talking how great mixed-use zoning is, and Phil Fortino from Rabobank was shaking his head, and he says, you have no idea how hard it is to get financing for mixed-use zoning. It's just not something that's readily available. So as time went on, Bill got tired of having me knock on his door and ask about this, and probably for no less than 6 years, Oil Ken Henry, currently these gentlemen have facilities in Salinas, Watsonville, San Francisco, and they also built one in Capitola off of Trout Gulch, which may not mean anything to you, but in Santa Cruz County to do Trout Gulch, which is right above a creek, is kind of a miracle. But they're very well respected, and one of them actually is a Samuel County resident. We've looked for sites, and I heard you make mention of the North Gateway. What's interesting about this is their footprint is not very large. And so when you start looking out at some of the places out by the dealerships, one, there's not a readily available amount of real estate to purchase to be able to do this. And those lots that are, say, behind the dealership are larger lots, so they make it economically, what's the word I'm looking for, not viable. So the current owners of the old 76 station KFC lot, they've had their property off and on the market for probably every bit of 10 years without success. And part of that problem has been the fault study. Part of it has been the mixed-use zoning and finding somebody that felt that was a good fit. So I hear what you're saying about protection of the historic downtown, and I wholeheartedly agree. But this is an area of Hollister that I think it's not inappropriate to call blighted. That these lots have been empty. They've not been doing anything, creating jobs, tax dollars. And so, Caroline, I'm sorry, Councilperson Lenore, I agree with the concept of it. You're saying, I think that at some point we have to recognize that the DC overlay, while it sounded good at the time, as time has moved on, it just hasn't worked. And here's an opportunity for us to bring a business, employees, tax dollars to the community, and it is a one-day use, a minor vehicle use, so it would be appropriate with your permission. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional speakers on this item? Ann Hall.
Thanks.
Thanks.
And I'm here, Ann Hall with San Benito Engineering, and we had discussed with Abraham what was the best way to approach this site, and looking for some kind of change to the zoning, or how we would go about requesting that to allow this use on the site. And so we've been working with staff trying to figure out how to do that. From my own experience, I would say that I agree that this is more, I understand what you're saying, but it feels more like a transition zone between the North Gateway and the downtown. The Hollister Downtown Association, if you look at their flyers and information, only consider the downtown up as far as 3rd Street, really, when they put out information. Once you get north of 3rd Street, you don't have the same sidewalk improvements, you don't have the same lighting, it doesn't feel like downtown. I do think you're entering a little bit more of a transition zone. And, historically you had Buick Motors there, and you did have car-related activities, so I don't think this is inappropriate, and it would be nice to see some of that area get developed. That's my 2 cents, although I do respect what Carol says about the, aspiring to the general plan and hoping to get there.
Thank you, Ann. Okay. Any additional speaker cards, Abraham?
No more speaker cards, Chairman Torres.
Okay, we'll go ahead and bring it back at 7:19, back to the commission.
So when you have a mixed-use zoning downtown, and this is not a mixed use, it's just a flat-out commercial business, that complies with the zoning requirements?
The mixed use does allow for commercial as well. So even though the actual proposal is not proposing residential as well, because it's commercial, it does comply. We if, for example, the city did have the opportunity of having applicants come in and really provide a bunch of multifamily housing, or do retrofits to the existing buildings and do housing on top, and it came to the realization that we had our fair share of housing in downtown, then we can come back at that point and say no more. It's a mixed use, but no more residential. It's all going to be commercial, or vice versa. If we start seeing that all these vacant lots are being consumed by commercial, and we say, hey, we need some housing, we can make that policy and say no more commercial. It is a mixed use, but no more commercial. Housing is going to be allowed only from now on. But at this point, because we haven't seen a lot of activity, at this point we're open essentially for either or, as long as it meets the code. And right now we would not be able to process a set an architectural application on that site because it's not permitted. This would be an amendment to the code allowing this, would allow for that application to be processed.
Okay, and then my last comment in response to Jason's comment about why it wasn't developed, and that was because of the moratorium in the recession. That's what hit that lot. It wasn't that there was no interest, it's that they couldn't do anything on it, and that's what delayed that. And I have a beautiful mixed-use development that just went in next to me, 10 units and commercial. Seems like it's looking good, working good. If you don't stick to your guns and you just give up because somebody doesn't want to do something, then don't have a plan. I'm done.
Okay. Any additional comments, Commissioner? All right. Well, I will go ahead and...
I just don't. I want to say a few more words on it. No one has to. Everyone that knows me knows how much I love the historic district, and I want to preserve that historic district within those boundaries. But in this particular case, you've got a lot of difficulty factors with this site, and I think that looking at it in the site specifically, that seeing it's been vacant for so long, and that we do need, there's going to be some benefit to allow this applicant to proceed. All things considered, I'm for it. And I'm done.
Okay. Any comments? All right. Well, I'm going
to... Can you separate the two issues or not?
It's...
Chairman, I'm asking if you would be amenable to separating the two issues so that I may vote my conscience appropriately.
I don't know how we can...
Yes, Commissioner Lenore, the answer to your question is yes, if it's done by motion and it's seconded.
So I'll make a motion that we do consider these items separately.
Okay, motion on the floor.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Good. All right, so we'll separate those two items, and what you have to do is second resolution, I'm assuming, right, Abraham?
Is that correct, Soren, or would it be...
I would go in the order of presentation, so your first one would be the...
on-site notification?
Correct. The signage.
Okay, so I will go ahead and make the motion for a PC Resolution 2017-33, I believe it would be.
That's correct.
For the amending Title 17 zoning code to implement standards pertaining to the on-site notification of proposed projects in the city of Hollister.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Then we will go ahead and put in this, I'll go ahead and make the motion. Second motion, PC recommendation to the City Council, PC Resolution 2017-34, which would allow minor vehicle repair facilities in the downtown commercial and mixed-use DMU zoning district.
Except in the historic district and with an administrative permit review, if it's okay to add.
Okay.
That's an important little caveat to that motion.
So we'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain? Nay? Okay. All right. We'll move on to the next item, new business. Do we have any new business?
There's no new business.
Okay. Any old business?
No old business from staff.
Planning department reports.
Just wishing everybody happy holidays. It's been a very intense year. A lot of work. Blessed with a lot of work. 34 resolutions. That's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, that doesn't count all the, just work that we have at in the office and council meetings, presentations. Sometimes we go chamber, do presentations to different departments, all the other meetings that we have regionally and so forth. So just, want to thank staff for just all the great work and thank you for all of your support throughout the year.
Thank you. All right. Planning commission reports?
I just want to, real quick, can I just thank the city council for allowing me the opportunity to serve my city by appointing me on this planning commission. I want to say Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to all the city workers who I really miss working with on a daily basis, and to my fellow planning commissioners, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Likewise.
Merry Christmas.
Go ahead, Boyd. Commissioner Boyd.
That was very well stated. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah. Enjoy your holidays. And I certainly enjoy sitting up here on the Planning Commission with my fellow commissioners and working with staff.
Great. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys. With that, we'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Next meeting will be Thursday, January 25th at 6 p.m., 2018.